Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron. I hope you are having a great day in Jesus. So thankful you're here. We're going to be looking today at the Geneva Bible. I've done some reviews on the Geneva Bible, comparisons of the Geneva Bible. Today's more of just this background. We're in a series of English Bible translations. We're trying to do a review on every single one of them. So let's get started. And Wikipedia is just a really good source. Tons of sources on this though, but it's got some good stuff. So the Geneva Bible goes by G-E-N. You know, Sawyer had a great Geneva Bible back in the day. Early modern English, 1557 New Testament, 1560 complete. Used the Masoretic text and the Textus Receptus, Old New Testament. First English Bible with whole of Old Testament translated direct from Hebrew text. It's considered a Puritan translation. Now that's just the brief overview of it. So the Geneva Bible is one of the most historically significant translations of the Bible into English, preceding the King James Version by 51 years. Many people say it had to get outlawed in like 1616, 1617 is how the King James came to ascendancy, and there's many people that still prefer the Geneva to the King James today. It was a primary Bible of the 16th century English Protestantism. It was used by William Shakespeare, Oliver Cromwell, John Knox, John Donne, and others. It was one of the Bibles taken to America on the Mayflower. Pilgrim Hall Museum has collected several Bibles of Mayflower passengers. I've heard there was 3 Genevas and 2 KJVs. Because you hear that a lot. The Geneva Bible came over with the Pilgrims. Well, it did, but I think the KJV did as well. The Geneva Bible was used by many English dissenters and was still respected by Oliver Cromwell's soldiers at the time of the English Civil War, which is a fascinating period of history. In the booklet, The Soldier's Pocket Bible. This version of the Bible is significant because for the first time a mechanically printed, mass-produced Bible was made available directly to the general public, which came with a variety of scriptural study guides and aids, collectively called an apparatus, which included verse citations that allow the reader to cross-reference one verse with numerous relevant verses in the rest of the Bible, introductions to each book of the Bible that act to summarize all the material that each book would cover, maps, tables, woodcut illustrations, and indices. So that's kind of interesting. I tell you something I've run across in studying this. First of all, when I was studying this particular area, I thought that was very significant. That was good, called the apparatuses and all this. First mechanically produced with all that. But secondly, there's a certain segment, not all Catholics, but there's a certain segment within the Catholic Church that kind of thinks this was some kind of Protestant conspiracy and maybe there were some other nefarious forces involved. It's kind of interesting. We won't go into all that. Because the language of the Geneva Bible is more forceful and vigorous, most readers strongly prefer the version to the Great Bible. In the words of Cleland Boyd McAfee, it drove the Great Bible off the field by sheer power of excellence. Now, McAfee was an American theologian, Presbyterian minister, and hymn writer, penning the gospel hymn Near to the Heart of God and its tune called Maccabee. He wrote the song after the concurrent deaths of 2 of his young nieces caused by diphtheria. He is also believed to be the creator of the acronym TULIP, which represents the 5 points of Calvinism. Now, I thought that was fascinating. Cleland Boyd McAfee gave us TULIP. So the history, and many of you know this, but again, this is just really good. The Geneva Bible followed the Great Bible of 1539, the first authorized Bible in English, which was the authorized Bible of the Church of England. During the reign of Queen Mary, First of England, 1553 to 1558, also known as Bloody Mary, killing Bible translators among 300 others, a number of Protestant scholars fled from England to Geneva, Switzerland, Calvin's Geneva, which was then ruled as a republic. Theodore Beza ruled after Calvin and provided the primary spiritual and theological leadership. Among these scholars was William Whittingham, big part in the Geneva, who supervised the translation in collaboration with Miles Coverdale, he of the Coverdale Bible. Did a review of the Coverdale Bible just a few weeks ago. You may want to check out I found it was interesting. Christopher Goodman, Anthony Gilby, Thomas Sampson, very popular, and William Cole, Billy Cole. Several of this group later became prominent figures in the vestments controversy. Whittingham was directly responsible for the New Testament, which was complete and published in 1557, while Gilby oversaw the Old Testament. And the vestment controversy arose in the English Reformation, ostensibly concerning vestments or clerical dress. It was initiated by John Hooper's rejection of clerical vestments in the Church of England under Edward VI. It was later revived under Elizabeth I. It revealed concerns within the Church of England over ecclesiastical identity, doctrine, church practice. And boy, that's just, do we do what's in the Bible, or do we allow other things as long as it's not contrary to the Bible? People still fight over that. Sir William Rowland Hill of Sultan, who coordinated and published the 1560 Geneva Bible. You can still get pages from that, by the way. You know, when they're just devastated Bibles, they take the pages and pass them out. They cost money. From Great Sight Marketing, John Jeffcoat there, wonderful person. So the full edition of this Bible with a further revised New Testament appeared in 1560. So that's interesting to know, because I've got a 1557 facsimile. 1560 New Testament's going to be a little different. It was not printed in England until 1575, the New Testament, 1576, a complete Bible. Over 150 editions were issued, the last probably in 1644. Even though I know, like, even into the 1700s, I've seen on eBay, if I'm not mistaken, like they'd have a Bible from 1715, King James with Geneva notes. And I think there's one 1675 as well. The first Bible printed in Scotland was a Geneva Bible, 1579. The involvement of John Knox and Calvin in the creation of the Geneva Bible made it especially appealing in Scotland, where a law was passed in 1579 requiring every household of sufficient means to buy a copy. I think that's fantastic. Well, I don't believe in coercion, but I mean, that's just kind of cool. Kind of like Kennesaw, Georgia with the Second Amendment. This is, here, everybody needs a Bible if you've got the money. Some editions from 1576 onward include Loris Thompson's revisions of the New Testament. That's significant. Some editions from 1599 onward use the new Junius version of the Book of Revelation, in which the notes were translated from a new Latin commentary by Franciscus Junius. And there's a lot of people that really like the Junius edition, 1599 on forward. The annotations, which are an important part of the Geneva Bible, were Calvinist and Puritan character, very anti-Catholic, and as such were disliked by the ruling pro-government Anglicans of the Church of England, as well as King James I. He said it was the worst translation, and that's really how we got the King James. The Geneva Bible had also motivated the earlier production of the Bishop's Bible under Elizabeth I for the same reason, and the later Reims-Dewey edition of the Catholic community. The Geneva Bible remained popular among Puritans, remained in widespread use until after the English Civil War. Hell, here's what I was just saying. The Geneva Notes were surprisingly included in a few editions of the King James Version as late as 1715. Now, I want to say, there's a segment of the population that still uses the Geneva Bible to this day. I don't know if it's been a continuous line, or maybe it's just a revival of that. So following the persecution of Mary I, a team of Calvin's followers gathered in Geneva to produce an English language Bible to reflect Protestant theology. William Whittingham led a team of all Calvinist theologians in producing the Geneva Bible from the existing Latin and English versions, including Miles Coverdale, and we've already gone over the other people. Whittingham, and I didn't realize this, had worked on other English versions, including Tyndale's, Coverdale's, Matthew's, and other partial English translations. I knew Coverdale had done a lot of that. Whittingham and the other translators had only basic knowledge of ancient Hebrew, no understanding of Aramaic, and only an elementary understanding of Greek, and thus were unable to heavily rely on any ancient text. Few older Greek and Hebrew manuscripts were available at the time, but there were some. For example, in 1516, Erasmus compiled and published a handful of older Greek Orthodox versions of the New Testament text brought into Europe by Orthodox Christians fleeing the fall of Constantinople in 1453. Big event with the Bible, because all those Eastern Christians, with their knowledge of Greek and copious manuscripts, fled to the West. However, knowledge of Hebrew and Greek was basic among the Protestant reformers, particularly Cowine. Not Tyndale knew it, Luther knew it, Erasmus knew it. There was others that knew it. That's kind of a overgeneralization. Instead, they were heavily relied on Tyndale's English New Testament, which was translated mostly from the Latin Vulgate. That may be debatable. And the Latin Vulgate directly with references to Erasmus 1516 Interlinear Latin Greek Novum Instrumentum Omni, which was also instrumental in the translation of the King James Bible, and to Theodore Bezet's Biblia Sacra. Now, Bezet was some master at Greek and all this. A Greek version translated from the Vulgate, not the original Greek, because ancient Greek and Hebrew were largely inaccessible to the Calvinist translators. That errors that had originated with the Vulgate were retained throughout the work. I'm not sure that's all true. The first European translation of the Bible directly from Hebrew and Greek sources was the Catholic translation by Santes Pagnino, called the Veteris et Novi Testamente Nova Translatio in 1527. Now that's good information to know. But Luther, the Geneva translation, the Luther Bible, and all subsequent Protestant translation relied nearly exclusively on Jerome's Vulgate to varying degrees. The purpose of the Geneva Bible translation was polemic and reactionary, and thus contained many deliberate mistranslations, first made by Tyndale to use it as a weapon against Catholicism. See, not so sure that's true either. I've read a lot of Tyndale, his original works, and like the people from the Tyndale Society and things, Daniel. These included rendering metanoia as repent instead of dependence. See, and you could make the argument that it's the Catholic Bible that translates it theologically instead of strictly scripturally. Ecclesia is congregation instead of church. The bulk of the text of the Geneva Bible is not scripture, a commentary to ensure the reader interprets the text through Calvinist tradition. Gotta make sure my mic is still here. The Geneva Bible is the first English Bible to use verse numbers based on the work of Robert Estienne of Paris, by this point also living in Geneva. And see, he did 5 Greek Bibles, Robert Stephanus. See, it also had an elaborate, and he also did the numbering system for Plato. He was really great at that. It also had an elaborate system of commentary and marginal glosses. This annotation was done by Lawrence Thompson, who translated for the 1560 Geneva Bible L'Oester's notes on the Gospels, which themselves came from Camerarius. Now, I'm not acquainted with L'Oester's notes, and Johann Camerarius was, let's see here, he studied at Leipzig, Erfurt, and Wittenberg, became intimate with Philip Melanchthon, if you know reformers. For some years he was teacher of history and Greek at the gymnasium in Nuremberg. 1530 he was sent as deputy for Nuremberg to the Diet of Augsburg, where he helped Melanchthon drawing up the Augsburg Confession. I just finished reading that. That was interesting. Camerarius' grandson, Ludwig Camerarius, was a leading figure of the 30 Years' War as head of the Palatinate government in exile. So he produced the first printed Greek text of Ptolemy's astrology. So he knew Greek. This is the thing. So let's go back over here. In 1576, Thompson added L'Oester's notes for the epistles, which came from Beza's Greek and Latin edition of the Bible. Bezet did 10 different Greek editions. Beginning in 1599, Franciscus Junius notes on Revelation were added, replacing the original notes deriving from John Bale and Heinrich Bullinger. Bale's The Image of Both Churches had a great effect on these notes, as well as Fox's Book of Martyrs. What a book that is, or a series of books. You need to get it and read it. It's amazing. The whole thing. Both the Junius and Bullinger Bale annotations are explicitly anti-Roman Catholic and represent a much popular Protestant apocalypticism during the Reformation. I think, don't they say the locust in Revelation 9 or the Catholic priest or something? And then they advocate, disobedience to tyrannies, obedience to God, or something like that. 1560 Geneva Bible is printed in Roman type, the style of type regularly used today, which is great because the original King James is in Gothic, hard to read. But many editions use the older black letter Gothic type. The next to use Roman type was the Douay Rheims of 1582 in the Old Testament, 1609-1610. The Geneva Bible is also issued in more convenient and affordable sizes than earlier versions. 1560 was in quarto format, which is basically just a regular, but pocketable octavo editions, very small, were also issued for a few large folios. In the late 16th century, it's like the Geneva New Testament cost less than a week's wages, even for the lowest paid laborers, which is amazing. Number of study aids, including woodcut illustrations, explanatory tables, index of names and topics, and famous marginal notes. Each book was preceded by an argument or introduction, each chapter by a list of its contents. It's also known as the Breeches Bible. The Geneva Bible received the nickname Breeches Bible based on its unique translation of Genesis 3:7. Text reads, "Then the eyes of them both were opened, Adam and Eve, and they both knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves breeches." Previous English Bibles, such as the 1530 Pentateuch of William Tyndale and the 1535 Coverdale, 1539 Great Bible, use the word aprons in this place. And so the King James changed it back to aprons. King James didn't like it. Goes on about that. So that's a little bit about the Geneva Bible. I was just seeing there was Robert Barker, printer. Anyhow, the making of Bibles always jokingly say there is no end, but just take up and read. Tolle lege, take up and read, like Augustine supposedly heard. God bless, we love you. Listen to our other videos, listen to our playlist, join us daily, and hit subscribe, bell notification. Talk with you later. God bless.